Hello, welcome to Devlog 16. It's been a little bit since Devlog 15, but things are better by a lot, so that's pretty great. So let's get right into this. First off, let's start with the Revenant. Well, you'd probably know it as the revolver or the weapon on key 1. It's now called the Revenant, which is probably going to be its final name. I changed the base damage for it to 50. I allowed it to hit critical hit points like headshots and such, which does 2 times damage and will inflict a damage vulnerability on the hit target. It shoots every half second. Next we've got the Echo, which is the new name for the shotgun, because it didn't really have a name. The Echo does 50 damage point blank, 51 in the test build, but that was a bug that I fixed. I made it so when you hit an enemy at close enough range, you do a bunch of knockback to them. And this knockback adds a damage vulnerability to them. Damage vulnerability is plus 50%. Also, you can shoot projectiles out of the air to send them back to their respective attacker. Next up, we've got the Nemesis, which is the weapon on key 3. It does 5 damage per shot, which means it's not very good at killing enemies, but it has a lot of utility as a combo tool to keep enemies juggled in midair and stunned. If you shoot an enemy with the Nemesis, it will raise up their resistance so they can't move very fast and will fall slower. Next up, we've got the Archangel, which is the new name for the RPG. I modified the damage, so it'll do 125 damage per shot. On a direct hit, it does double that. It will only knock enemies up vertically, unless on a direct hit, so you can use this to pop enemies in the air to do quick air shots. It shoots every 1.2 seconds at max speed. And if you shoot it, it explodes at 3 times the radius, 3 times the knockback, and does 50% more damage. Next up, health and player utilities. The player's health now can be regenerated by filling a bar called adrenaline. Once the adrenaline meter is filled, the player heals for a set amount of health. At this time, you need to deal 250 damage to heal 20 health. I also added some health kits, but they can't be earned, only found. There's one in the test map right now that heals 25 health. I added a ability called Ground Pound. When you're midair, press Control, go straight down, and knock back any enemy in a radius around you, but not above you or below you. You have a health bar thing on the left of your crosshair and the adrenaline meter on the right, and the crosshairs are all dots of different colors. I also added portals and bounce pads. Bounce pads haven't changed, but portals will just teleport you to their set endpoint. The jump height has been doubled, and I did a bunch of stuff to the enemies. I'm just gonna let this gameplay play out while I talk about the changes. So first off with the enemies, I removed 2 of them, the flying one and the really bouncy little square guy. They were called the Refined Lantern and the Pogo respectively, but it didn't matter. I added the Leaper. The name will be changed later to something that I like more. It's the ball that jumps at the player. And I reworked the strafer a little bit. The name may also change, I'm not sure. I converted the strafer to State Machine, so it has better decision making and can be stunned. It now shoots independent of its look direction to be more, strafey and kind of. I just like this change. It works for me. And I also changed the projectile to be a kind of course correction homing projectile, because sometimes it would just barely miss you, and I think homing projectiles are just cool. They're just cooler, it's pretty great. I changed the attack intervals as well for some balancing, which is kind of to be expected because it's a homing projectile now. And you can reflect their projectiles to switch the target back to the entity that fired it, which is pretty cool. Every projectile has a short lifespan of like 15 seconds so that they can't chase you forever. And the strafers can now be launched and juggled midair, and if you do that, it'll prevent it from attacking. If you go back to an old test build and like shoot a rocket at its feet, it'll just be pushed horizontally or will die on the spot. It had no, there wasn't any way to move it vertically. You could run into it and knock it back horizontally, but never upwards. And now you can do that. And I also set its health to 500 because the way I want the game to be played, the enemies need to be a little bit beefier, so you can actually get combos going instead of just killing them in one shot. And then the new guy, the Leaper, name to be determined. It jumps at the player's location with a little bit of fuzzing, so it's not 100% accurate, but it will always damage you if you don't move. It does like its actual attack when it jumps and lands, and it does 15 damage like per attack. So if you let it land next to you and jump next to you at the same time, it'll do about 30 damage. I mean, it could do more or less depending on how it manages to jump, but it will consistently do about 30. It can be juggled midair quite easily, and it has a weak point on its back, so if you do juggle it, you can just kind of burst it down with combos and stacking stats and whatever, and it's pretty good. I've had this enemy concepted like in my head for a while, and I'm really glad I was finally able to get it in game, and it's pretty fun. Although the builds you'll play in the Infinite Arena, it's not balanced as it will be in the full game, because that many leapers and strafers in one area is not like reasonable to deal with in an actual like real full game circumstance. So keep in mind it won't be that absurd when the game releases. One more thing about the Leaper. When it jumps, a cooldown starts that won't let it jump again until it's over. So if for some reason it's just standing right next to you and it jumps, it won't infinitely jump doing like 60 damage or whatever in a second. It will have to wait to let you walk away, that should be okay. Also, one more thing. The reason I'm releasing the devlog on this Tuesday specifically is because exactly a year ago I started making the game. August 30th, 2021. So I figured it's been a while since I've made a devlog, and a lot of progress has happened this past summer, so yeah, I should release a devlog. So if you're still here, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the build. Also, there might be a couple changes from the patch notes or the devlog to the build, because I might do a couple like balancing changes, like might be a couple balancing changes or slight color tweakings in a particle or something. So I'll add it to the patch notes if it is changed, but it might not make it to the actual video. Anyway, thank you. I'll either see you next week or in a year. We'll see. Thanks. Bye.